Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer this evening. It's not Saturday, it's Tuesday. I was almost like, oh, it's Saturday. I'm like, no, it's not. Thank you guys for joining me. I know we changed the date on you. Usually we're doing these on Saturdays, but this week and next week it's going to be Tuesdays. So if it's a school night, if it's a work night, thanks for joining me, even though it's a little bit later. Hope everybody is doing well. Gonna give everybody a little bit of time to kind of settle in. Obviously, we alternate weekly. We do these live readings to be available to give you guys assistance with what's going on with this crazy world right now. Happy new moon in Cancer, everybody. So special to be able to spend that with everyone here this evening. I am going to assume that everybody's doing their new moon intentions. You guys are focusing on getting comfortable and finding a nice quiet space to set intentions and celebrate this new lunar cycle this evening. So this week we're gonna be doing astrology readings. Here's how it's gonna work for those of you guys who are new to my channel. Right over here there's a QR code. You can scan that if you're watching on a tablet or if you're watching on TV or on a desktop. It's gonna take you directly to my PayPal where you can make a donation for a reading. In order to get a reading, I need these things from everybody. So it's basically going to be a minimum donation of $40 for a question on one topic or situation in regards to your life. If you know your chart well and you have a question about an aspect or a situation in regards to timing, I'm happy to answer that for you by looking at the transits. I'll cast the chart and pull it up on the live screen so everybody who's watching can see how and when some of these things are going to play out based off of transits. We are asking everybody to please be sure to include all of this information. We need to have your first name, how it relates to your PayPal and your YouTube, because some of you guys have different names. I need to have the exact date. So I need the month, day, and year. Please spell out the month for me because we have some international people. I also need to know the exact time, AM and PM, or city of birth. I need this information to be able to cast the chart. If you don't have it, you can check that out on a birth certificate. Usually that information is there. If you don't have that, no worries. Guess what? You can usually get that from your local records clerk, or you can try asking family to get an idea of when you were born. So this is going to give you a nice kind of sample of getting a session with me. Hopefully you guys are digging it. Like I said, $40 donation for one question. If you have Synastry questions or about how you relate to another person, what it could look like in a relationship dynamic, whether or not it's kind of like a good match, it will be $65 for donation. Now, sometimes people just want to hang out and watch and join the chat. Totally cool as well. But we just want to say a big thank you to all of our members, all of our supporters. If you haven't already, give us a thumbs up and make sure that you're subscribed to the channel so you know when we're coming out with new content. I am working so hard, guys, to create content and be making sure that I'm staying on task and putting a video out pretty much almost 4 days a week. So I'm trying to create content every other day because I'm trying to reach my goal of being able to create content full time and being able to do that so I can focus more on teaching and expanding and being able to do more. If you guys like my reading style, if you like how I read tarot and astrology, click on my links below, check out my website. I have my Astrology 101 course that's now on sale. You can take that. It's over 14, I think even more, like 16, 18 hours of live instruction with all kinds of homework. And you can see that whole course and be able to learn astrology the way that I practice it. So it's awesome if you're just getting into learning about astrology and you want to learn how to make birth charts make sense. I'm also doing signups right now for my Tarot 101 course, which is going to be starting in just a couple weeks. So I'm going to be teaching that live. So it's going to be Sunday mornings on Pacific time, and it's going to be about 5 weeks of teaching beginners intuitive intuitive tarot. So many courses. Astrology has already been filmed, so it's a packaged product. If you want to take the live class tarot, that's going to be starting in a couple weeks. And today I dropped my Uranus North Node webinar link, so make sure you check that out. You can check out my website. You can get on there and you can buy a ticket. It's going to be $25 and it's going to be a live lecture where I'm going to give PDFs and all kinds of information about what this conjunction means, what it means for the future. So check that out as well. It's going to be, I'm super excited. I've been working on that all week long because it's so long that it's going to be too much for me to be able to make a video, and it's just jam-packed with information and lots of goodies. So if you want to learn more about that, check out my website. But we put a couple videos out about the North Node Uranus conjunction if you guys haven't seen it. Today's content also was the astrology of Roe versus Wade. So if that's something that interests you, if you have questions about what the future of that might look like, why some of these overturns are taking place cosmically, check out that video. Big thank you to all my subscribers and my members, especially all of my members. But if you're a level 2 or a level 3, you get a shout out. If you're level 3, you're going to get a reading from me once a month. So I want to say thanks to everybody like Deanna, Angela Hayden, Emma, Ezekiel, Susan, Paula, Miss Fogel, Jackie, Angela, Hera, Nancy, Phoenix, Jessica, Martinez, and Susan Wexler. You guys are awesome. If there are any level 3 people who are in the house that want to get their monthly reading, please let me know. This is going to be the last one for the month, y'all. We're not going to be back until Tuesday. Actually, yeah, we're going to be doing tarot on Tuesday on the 5th. So it'll be another Tuesday evening. And you can also join level 3 if you want as well. Sometimes getting in at the end of the month is cool because you can buy your membership, get a reading, and then you get a reading like a week later. So sometimes people like to get in at the end if that interests you as well. So if we don't have any level 3 people, I'm going to go ahead and move right on into my list. This is the list that I have in order. And I do want to preface this by saying I need the birth information and the question for Tara, or I guess the screen name is G. So please let me know. I need to get that information from you. Otherwise, I have Deanna, Stephanie Ford, Synastry question. Madison has questions. Madison, you didn't give me birth information. However, I can answer your question without that information, but if you would like to give me your birth information so I can pull up where your placements in Scorpio are to kind of better assess your question, I'm happy to do that. Tara, I need your info, so once I get that, or G, I can put in your information. Stephanie's got questions about a solar return, and Sarah has questions as well. So we've definitely got some people. We usually call last call after about, we've been doing this for an hour because it can take time to get through everybody's questions. So I appreciate your patience. Thank you guys for being patient and hanging out with me until we get some of these questions and readings underway. If you send a PayPal, please let me know. That way I can check it because I'm going through a couple different screens. So I'm going to go ahead and start first with Deanna. Thank you. Thank you, G. Got it. Let me put your info here. Yeah, so if you guys are making donations, please make sure you put that information just so that way I can have your chart up and ready to go when we get going, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. Let's go ahead and start with Deanna. So I'm going to pull up Deanna's question. And that was right here. So her question was, if I invest $2,000 in selling products online through Amazon by using an existing turnkey system to do this and copying those methods, will this successfully get me the passive income in the future? Is this a side hustle that'll make me money if I work at it? I'm curious, like what system it is and like what particular kind of products, or like what is it that you would be selling? Because that can be very general. Also, I'll tell you guys, like, asking questions about will this happen, will that happen. Astrology is going to talk more generally in terms of like particular time periods. Really, that's more of like a horary question or a tarot question, but we can definitely look at, depending on what kind of business you're saying you have to invest some money in some products. I'd be curious what kind of a business it is. Let me know. But let's go ahead and get into it anyway. So Deanna's got a Leo rising. The inner wheel is her natal chart. So she is a Leo rising. Her sun is in Sag and her moon is in the sign of Virgo. Now, I work with Placidus. I'm not a whole sign house reader, just a heads up. I find for like timing purposes, Placidus is more accurate. I would assume that part of the reason why you're asking is because, you know, as a Leo rising, you do have quite a bit of pressure in your chart right now to make major shifts and innovations in regards to the business that you have or what you're doing professionally, right? I say this because you've got Uranus in the North Node moving through your 10th house, asking you to innovate and make changes in regards to your career. You've got Saturn in your 7th house, which is dealing with how you relate to it. You've also got the South Node that's hanging out in your natal 4th house. So there's quite a bit of pressure between relationships and showing up and what you're doing for a living, where you're living. Leo risings, I think, are kind of getting hit particularly hard. All the fixed signs are feeling it, but Leo risings are really feeling it. And I would say, please be mindful that part of what's going on as well is that all year we're going to see this return. Saturn in Aquarius is going to come back into a square with Uranus. So I get the impression, looking where Uranus, that Saturn can produce like limitations, especially client limitations, or something that you would sell, like services to other people or products that you would sell to other people. And I would reflect on what was happening last year. If you felt like you were trying your hand at a couple different new jobs, or different things that could be more independent with Uranus in your 10th, I would imagine that perhaps maybe there was like some frustration of being like, okay, it didn't happen yet. It didn't happen fast enough yet. You've also been in your Saturn opposition. So last year was not necessarily the easiest or the best time to make a big shift in regards to your career stuff. But I will say this, you have some really positive transits that are kind of setting up right now. The North Node in Taurus in your 10th house is coming in conjunction with Jupiter, which in your case is the ruler of the 5th house, which is about your own business, doing something that involves importing, exporting, shipping. Sagittarius 5th house is taking a gamble on self-employment, trying to kind of do something different that might give you the opportunity to feel like you have a little bit more fun and freedom. So I'm wondering, would this be a business that's reliant on products? Would this be a business that would somehow tie in either Sagittarius or 9th house values, right? So keep in mind, if you're somebody who's going to go, I'm going to buy all these products, there's shipping and receiving, and then there ends up being shipping and receiving delays globally, it can definitely impact a chart like this as we start to see squares that are going to be happening later this year. Two is that you've also got Uranus, which is the traditional ruler of your 7th house of clients and partnerships, coming into conjunction with your Jupiter. So I feel like this is definitely something that's going to take a little bit of time to fully unlock. You'll see, especially next year, as Jupiter and Uranus come into conjunction for your Jupiter return, there's something potentially very successful, but also like wildly different and unusual or new that you're going to be doing as well. Now, your midheavens in Taurus, ruled by Venus. Venus is in the 6th. Whole sign-wise, it's in the 7th. So I'm wondering, like, what are these services or things that you're selling to people? I'm hoping that you're here so you can let me know and I can give you more insight. But specifically, when we start to see career success, we need to see some real positive transits that are happening to your Venus, which is going to be in Aquarius. Now, it's very clear over the next couple of years, as Pluto gets closer and closer to your natal Venus, it's going to be giving you the opportunity to radically change your day-to-day life, what you're doing for work, possibly being able to get to a point where you could grow a business, you could hire people who could help you manage that Venus in the 6th products that you are like developing, you know? I have this feeling, though, that with Mars coming into conjunction with Uranus, this can either present a situation where you suddenly have to jump on an opportunity, and Mars rules your 9th, and teach yourself something as well right around this time period. So this is going to be starting up for you, let's say the end of July, because Mars and Uranus are going to come together. So 9th house is about something that you're learning or something that you're advertising for, and then Uranus is going to be the ruler of your 7th. I do feel like it may materialize as like a sudden opportunity to partner with someone else. However, there's going to be a really harsh square to Saturn, and Taurus does deal with money and resources. So I would advise you probably to wait until you start seeing a much more positive aspect between the Sun and your Venus. So I'm getting the impression perhaps maybe when Venus starts coming into a better placement, like out of Virgo and maybe into Libra, and it starts trining your Venus. Obviously, sometimes I break people's hearts and I just tell them like the more appropriate timing I would say the more appropriate timing is probably when you're going to start seeing trines in the late September, early October time period, when you see your chart ruler and Venus, so your first house lord and also your 10th house lord coming into conjunction. And it's going to start trining Mars, which is going to be starting to see some kind of action. And then it's also going to be trining Venus in your 6th. I would want to see how things economically shake out. You know, I've talked about this a bit on my channel with the North Node Uranus conjunction video. I also brought somebody on and we chatted about it, but I realized that, like I said, it cannot be all done in one video in an hour. That's why I'm doing a webinar on it. Part of what's coming with the Mars North Node Uranus conjunction at the end of July, beginning of August, is we're going to see a huge revolutionary shift. Energetically, some global financial power shifts. There's going to be a lot changing financially. So I look at this and I go, it's better for you to wait probably until the end of September, early October, when a lot of this stuff has settled out, and you'll be able to better decide whether or not that's going to be a good investment. Regardless, part of what I see with Jupiter and Uranus coming into conjunction in your 10th house next year is there's no doubt there is some real big shifts happening. I can also see this because you're going to be having an eclipse that's going to be in Taurus right around November 8th. And that eclipse is going to be with the moon and Uranus conjunct. And that can represent something that you started suddenly, like kind of getting either kind of rocky, or you being like, okay, what do I do now? It's a pivot, you know? And that also makes me feel like it's probably important for you to be really careful with what you're investing in. Now, things that you spend, money that you spend, right? That's always going to be Mercury. That's your 2nd house. So the other way that I look at this is it could be worth waiting until Mercury goes direct in your 2nd house, and we want to see it like maybe, you know, come into a trine with Saturn. So I would rather Mercury get out of the opposition at the end of August. I want to see it start making some sextiles or trines to either planets that you have in Sag or trines to Saturn. So once again, all roads are leaving me to kind of feeling like it's going to be a smarter investment for you to do this closer to the end of September, early October. And depending on like annual perfections and other things that you can get from like getting a reading, I would really encourage you to go and learn about Uranus coming into conjunction with Jupiter. It makes me feel like this can present an opportunity for a really significant partnership that can be to help kind of expand your business, can bring in more clients and people who might want to purchase. And it can also bring in some real significant shifts for romantic relationships, you know? But yeah, I feel more confident telling you after the end of September, beginning of October, that's a better move. Side hustles are always the 5th house. We're also going to see that in this next year, Jupiter is going to come into trines with planets in your 5th house, and it could definitely be something that could pick up really until you get to about spring of next year, and then you can decide if you want to pivot and go in a different direction. Hopefully that's helpful for you. What's up, everybody in the chat? What's up, Kirk? Hey, Rom. Thank you guys for sending your info. Hey, Jay. Did you have a chance to see the 3-hour video from July of Ian and Donnie? Not yet. I like Donnie, though. He and I have been talking a little bit. We're trying to get him on the channel. We're just trying to find time because we have such a time difference because he's on the other end of the world. So we're trying to figure out how to do that. But he's great. I love him. He has read for me, and he's the real deal. All right, Deanna, if you come back around to this, let me know. Hopefully that's helpful. I'm going to move to Stephanie Ford, and she had questions about her and her partner. I'm going to do the composite because of what you were asking me. So just a heads up, Synastry is more how two people work together. But if you're asking what the next year is going to look like, I'm just going to run the midpoint composite, and I'm going to talk a little bit about just some of the significant points. So Stephanie, I've got your chart here. And wait a second, I want to make sure this is you. Yeah, June 27th, 93. And then I've got his October 2nd. So the composite, the midpoint composite, is finding the midpoint between both charts. So the inside is that South Node Sun in Leo, and it's also a Taurus rising. So you got a Leo Sun, Moon, Taurus rising. So your question was, what is to come in the year for my partner and I? Well, I would say buckle up. Questions for me are going to be things regarding around where are you going to live, right? Where are you going to live? Now we've got the South Node moving through your guys' composite 7th, so it can represent lessons in the relationship. It can represent some like karmic undoing or unraveling. And also the last couple of months, you guys have had the transit North and South Node in Taurus and Scorpio, squaring your natal nodes. For those of you guys who are going through your nodal square, it can kind of feel like you're in no man's land. It's like, I don't know where we're going. I haven't figured that out yet. All I know is that, you know, what we're doing right now, it ain't working. We need a new way forward. So that's been really happening since about the end of February going into March this year is when you experienced your nodal square. And then I also noticed that Uranus came to make a final opposition to your guys' Pluto. So it represents either this theme of like being separate, learning how to partner better, finding ways to be able to be together, learning to kind of let go of old toxic relationship patterns so you guys can come together, all that fun stuff. Saturn's been hanging out on your North Node as well, and it is the ruler of both your traditional 9th and 10th house. So I think it's stuff in regards to like, could we get married? Would we get married? Do we have the same philosophy and belief? Do we have the same goals in life? What's going on with our career? And how can we come better together? It's been challenging with Saturn in opposition to your composite sun. It makes me wonder, are you guys living in two separate places? Is somebody really focused on going like, no, we need to focus on our career and get that stuff going before we figure out a life and settling down and doing all these other things? Has there been anything like that that's been going on for you? That's my question. Because here we go, here comes Saturn coming back to an opposition with your sun and Uranus coming into a square with your sun as well. It means home and responsibility and job changes, right? So that's gonna be a really big theme. I would imagine since about April, May, when you had these eclipses in Scorpio and Taurus, it brought some real shakeups in terms of the relationship dynamics and this realization that in order to be a really strong partnership, you guys have to be working on your stuff separately, independently, so that way you guys can come together, right? I would say to you, really watch for Leo season because it's going to be starting off with a bang. As soon as you start having planets coming into Leo, it's going to immediately start squaring your Pluto and Uranus on the ascendant, and it's going to oppose Saturn. So it's going to represent this need to be like, how do we feel? What are we doing in our private lives? Like, what decisions do we need to make in regards to where we're living and how we're working to better facilitate a relationship? There will be a little bit of give and take. It's expected. Since this is a chart that is ruled by Venus, it's also going to pack a pretty significant punch when Venus comes into an opposition with Pluto around August 9th, let's say through the 11th. And then again, when the sun comes into opposition with Saturn, and it looks like there's going to be a full moon that is conjunct your guys' composite sun. So that tells me that that full moon in Aquarius is bringing up these themes of, are we separate? Could we come together? Do we have the same beliefs? Are we on the same page as one another? And last but not least, Uranus is still going to come into a square with your guys' sun next year. So that's going to represent the need to be more open with your emotions, your feelings, and where you're willing to live. And probably the big zinger is going to be in the new year, Pluto conjuncts your guys' composite midheaven. And Pluto's the ruler of your house of relationships. So it can be this thing that's like we're radically changing and transforming how we relate to each other. It can be a do or die situation where it's like we either evolve and we move to the next level or we, you know, call it quits. But as Pluto comes into conjunction with your midheaven in the spring, it will also oppose your guys' composite moon. So that tells me that somebody's got to either file a document, move, have a heart-to-heart conversation, like something like that is going to be going on, and it's prompting somebody to have conversations about where you guys are moving forward, right? Just know that when you have the eclipses that are going to be taking place in the fall again, it's really going to rock you guys because you're going to have one that is going to be, let's see, one that's going to be right along your descendant within a couple of degrees. And that'll be at 2 of Scorpio. And then 2 weeks later, you're going to have the full moon eclipse, which is going to be right along your ascendant, and it's going to be in opposition to your Pluto. To me, that's the level up period, right? When you see those eclipses that are squaring things, it's the leveling up. It's like, are we going to fully go the distance? So watch for issues revolving around where you're living, where you're working,
And lots of conversations in the 7th and the 10th house. That's like, are we coming together? Is it more serious? We see status changes when we have these eclipses, sometimes in the 7th or in the 10th house, or when it's in angles. And I'm sure none of this is a surprise to you. You know, last year Saturn and Uranus were squaring off. So I would say reflect on where you were feeling as if like you were getting frustrated because you wanted to feel like you had some kind of control over where relationships were going, and that you had a say in where relationships were going. But you also need a lot of freedom. So you could have found that while you're trying to exercise that freedom and being more vocal about what you need, some people could have kind of stepped back a little bit. There could have been some resistance. Now, really pay attention to what's going on in the first week of November. You guys are going to have an eclipse in aspect to your Pluto. The South Node's going to sit on your Pluto. There is a need to really make decisions about whether or not you guys can proceed forward and really facilitate building the life that you guys are looking to be able to build. And I can't tell if this is just cultural differences or actual living situations or legal situations, or whether or not you guys are on the same page about you know, marriage in general, but a lot of these themes kind of come up in this chart. Okay, hopefully that's helpful for you. Definitely your chart is one that would really warrant a reading with those eclipses coming in the fall, but hopefully that's enough to kind of get you started. Thank you guys to those of you guys who are waiting. So I've got Madison, Tara, I got your info, Stephanie, and Sarah. Let me just double check here and see who else we got so I can update this really quick. I'm curious what everybody's doing for the new and the full moon. Excuse me, the new moon. What are you guys doing? Let me know. I'm really feeling this one. It's been a very crazy day all day. Maybe it's the square to Jupiter. You know, there's a lot of big feelings, but a lot of having to do more than one thing at once. It's been a very dynamic day. Okay, so let's see who else I got. So we have Sarah Lansing, Ellie, Matt. Okay, we definitely have a number of people. So we're going to call last call at 8 o'clock. So if anybody else is watching, just a heads up. Okay, so we got Ellie, just so I don't lose track. Matt's here. Elizabeth, Martinez, Jamie, and Nadia. Cool. All right. So Madison, let's see. I didn't give out my info. I just wrote too much. That's okay. Let me put your info in anyway, just so I can look at what you've got going on, because that might help me get more context into why you're dealing with what you're dealing with. October 27th, 97. (1:32 p.m. Woodbury, New Jersey). And thank you for your question, by the way. All right, so let's put you in here. All right. So Madison, I'm going to read your question. Crying and cleaning. What's up, Asha? Madison says, hey, Candace, as a Scorpio, I feel like I'm used to people making me out to be the bad guy. I've been working on my toxic traits that I do have, and I'm trying to soften up. However, I feel like I cannot speak my truth at all without being called out for being too harsh, mean, or immature. At this point, it feels like I have to shut down my honesty altogether in order to get along with someone. It feels like others can call me out for my flaws when I try to talk about how I've been hurt by their behavior. The blame still gets put on me. They were only acting that way because of something I did. It's really eroding my sense of self. From a fellow Scorpio, how do we allow ourselves to see underneath the surface, share what we can find, but also staying palpable and agreeable within relationships? I'm tired of being the bad guy. I don't want to shut down that part of myself that seeks to confront the shadows without them hiding. That's a great question. Well, I think it's less about being a Scorpio, right? Because I feel like people who might have like a Sun Pluto or like a Moon Pluto or an 8th house stellium or a Mercury in Scorpio or an 8th house Mercury may feel the same way. So let's break apart that question and make it less about sun signs, because this is where astrology really benefits us by learning about the whole chart in itself, not just a particular sun placement, okay? Can Scorpios be toxic? 100%, but so can Leos, Aquariuses, Tauruses, Geminis, right? So I don't like this whole good, bad kind of theme of like sun signs. I feel like this is not just about being a Scorpio, and Scorpios are notoriously going to be attuned more to lower octaves, and we see things and we feel things, and there is a sense of constantly confronting the shadow. That's just part of having the sun in a 8th house sign. But personally, I feel like in your chart, it's more actually related to, I think, your sun that is in the same degree as your Mercury. I have Sun, Mercury, and Scorpio too. And certainly when the sun is very close to Mercury in any sign, there's like a very, what you see is what you get. So it doesn't really matter the sign. It's just going to really, in terms of how it communicates, shine a light on that Mercury, right? So Sun, Mercury, and Cancer can be sensitive. They can be, crying or reflecting on the past. Sun, Mercury, and Aquarius can be kind of techie, very futuristic. Sun, Mercury, and Scorpio is going to be a lot of like, let's cut the bullshit, let's get to the chase, right? And so, at least in my perspective, like that's my communication style. And I think that the Sun, Mercury in Scorpio can be somebody who can read between the lines, and they can see things that other people can't see about themselves, because it's also the sign that deals with psychology. So, okay, you've got the sun within 10 degrees, so technically that's considered under the beams of the sun, so it's burnt up. But you've got Mercury in a square to your ascendant, so sometimes that's not coming out the right way. There is a sense of feeling like people aren't understanding you, that people are taking what you're saying personally. By whole sign standards, your Mercury's in the 10th, which means there is a sense of you feeling the responsibility and the obligation to call a spade and be like, that's wrong, you didn't do this, but what about you? There's like a sense of wanting to hold people accountable, because it has that kind of Saturnian feel. But also, by Placidus standards, your Mercury's in the 9th, which is about teaching and preaching, and some people might feel like you lecture them, or some people might feel like you get judgmental and feel like they should understand things that you just comprehend. And then you've got Mercury in a close proximity to Chiron, which is about wounds revolving around communication and whether or not people hear you or understand you, which then in turn, because Mercury rules your 8th house, makes you go, why do I even say anything? Everybody's just going to kind of beat me up for the stuff that I say, right? You've also got Sun square Uranus, which means ain't nobody's going to tell you nothing, right? So you're very Uranian. So there is a sense of when people think you're going to go left, you go right. And so there can be this kind of more rebellious nature about you that can be, to some people, a little like erratic. And that Mercury is slightly in a square also to Uranus and also Jupiter as well. So Jupiter on the ascendant is very insightful. It's very knowledgeable. There is a sense of dealing with right from wrong. Jupiter presides over like laws. So I get this impression that there is like a sense sometimes of you being very knowledgeable and having a lot of information, but also it can magnify the Mercury in Scorpio the opposite direction of being kind of like really kind of intense with your communication, and some people can find that scary, right? Like there's something to be said about people who have Mercury Pluto aspects or Mercury in Scorpio. People can get very uncomfortable with the fact that you can like sit there and just like read them, right? And so it takes time, I think, to learn how to use that in a way that is less combative, and it's more using that to break down barriers and issues that you have with other people. Like you can use it as a way to be more, what's the word, like disarming. That's how I've tried to use it. Certainly I've had my fair share of some real issues with communication, and I've realized that I'm going to get a lot further by asking people, why do you think you behave this way? Or where does that behavior come from? Or, what happened to you in your past? Like you should also notice that people should want to share things with you, like Sun and Mercury and Scorpio. Like people might tell you things that they would say, oh, I don't usually tell people this. And you can feel like they come to you because they're in crisis and they need some kind of assistance, or they want to talk to you about something, and then you give them insight with that square from Jupiter, and then they don't like the fact that you're not just blowing smoke up their ass, and that you're literally telling them, this is what I think you need to do to get a better job, to be a better communicator, whatever. And there is a lot of insight that you have But I feel like it can kind of rub people a little bit the wrong way because Jupiter's on your ascendant. I feel like as Jupiter, this last year has been in a square to your Mercury, there's been this like feeling, Saturn has been on your ascendant, conjunct Jupiter in a square to your Mercury, that there's been this sense of like maybe you learning to not give unsolicited advice, or maybe be careful with who you share your beliefs with, because it's not worth kind of getting into like the, into some of the like verbal tiffs and things. It's like you're going to learn to pick your own battles, basically. At least that's my interpretation. I've also had Saturn in a square to my Mercury, and I've had Uranus in opposition to it as well. And it's materialized as the same thing, that sometimes saying less is more, and paying attention to how people act and behave when you do kind of cut communication. But also through that cut communication with certain individuals that were causing strife, it's made me realize like it's given me time to really focus on things that I do want to say and things that I do want to share with other people. So food for thought. It's been a rather difficult period of time here the last year or two with Uranus opposed your Mercury and Saturn conjunct your Jupiter. And I feel like it's teaching you that you want to share with people who are open to constructive criticism. If somebody says to you, hey, can I talk to you? Maybe it's a matter of saying like, do you just want to vent, or do you want solutions? And that's been something that I've had to really think about, like with friends, with family, as I've gone through that same transit. It's, you can have the answers, but not everybody is going to be so receptive or understanding of somebody who can give that information so intensely as a Sun Mercury can do. So toxicity is more Pluto. I mean, you do have Pluto conjunct your midheaven. It's within 3 degrees. So there is something very Plutonian about you. And Pluto in Sag generation is about, this is how we change our beliefs. This is how we change our culture. This is how we change law, anything in regards to like Sagittarius. So having Pluto on an angle is definitely going to make you a rather intense person, but out of 4 means you're very emotionally intense. And it's about, I think, finding ways to learn how to pick your battles so you're not feeling like people are kind of, getting back at you in the conversation and getting intense with you. They're in turn creating a lot of other issues. There's a lot of confronting shadow right now, and you've got an eclipse happening right around your birthday, and the South Node is coming into conjunction with your Sun, and I think that that's going to be bringing up some karmic lessons about how you relate to other people, because the Sun rules the 7th. Definitely consider getting a reading for your birthday, because you have an eclipse near your Sun, and it is kind of foreshadowing that you're going to be learning a lot about vulnerability, and that in order to better partner with people, it's going to be a little bit about letting your guard down and addressing issues that stem from possibly issues that you have with solar figures, like men, bosses, older brothers, people who tell you what to do. Like there's something that's kind of breaking down there, where maybe you have felt like you've been having challenges with male family members in the family, and finally it's being addressed, and you're going to be kind of clearing that out through relationships and learning not to just kind of hide in the shadows, if that makes sense. I feel like as much as I give off this energy, people want to treat me the same way. I struggle to find someone who will let me vent without giving me advice or lecturing me. Yeah. So it's like, here's the thing. With Scorpio placements, there's also like this like mirror effect. So it's also about getting into that habit of also saying, like asking people, like, before I talk to you about this, can you hold space for this? Oh, you can't? Okay, cool, I'm out. And it's been quite stressful with Saturn square Mercury. There's going to be this feeling of not being able to communicate. With Uranus opposed your Mercury, people who are very erratic in how they communicate with you, and there can be kind of blow-ups, but I'm very pleased to let you know that you're no longer experiencing these conjunctions or these squares, so it's actually going to get a lot easier. But what have you learned about who you communicate with and what people actually allow you to speak your truth? Mercury in Scorpio is always going to want to focus on truth. The thing is that your Mercury is conjunct Chiron, so there's this fear revolving around sharing your experiences or your pain or what's hurt you. And I think that in turn, through those interactions, can serve as like teaching lessons for you in the future because it's squaring your Jupiter. So it's something that you'll talk and teach and other people about. I think that you are also learning how to slow down a little bit in your communication style. That's something else that I notice. Venus rules your 3rd house. You've got Venus and Mars and Sag conjunct in the 10th, so there's a sense of you being like, do this, 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 and this. And people can get very intimidated because you can see clear as day what what you need to tell them or what they need to fix or correct, especially in regards to responsibility. A lot of this is about responsibility, or what people need to change and transform. Perhaps using that energy to put it into something professionally with the Mars, Venus, and Pluto, where you are, working with people, where you're incentivizing people, or you're working with people psychologically, or you're talking to them about, what makes them behave the way that they behave. So you can use that Mars-Venus conjunction to speak very passionately. I would say slow down. I think that you can communicate very intensely and very harshly sometimes, because your Mercury's at a 13. But if you slow down, you can actually find that you're going to be able to suss out the situations and see who's actually really receptive of hearing what you want to hear. I do that every day. I have to remind myself that every day, because even though people are coming to me for advice, sometimes people are going to ask questions that they really don't want the answer to, and I can kind of tell, giving them the answer like right between the eyes, it may not land so well. So I'm constantly having to kind of rework my delivery. I guess if that makes sense. So difficult transits you've been going through. Definitely circle back. Let me know what goes on with those eclipses. Does this apply to Sun, Mercury, the same sign, or just within close range? Anything within 10 degrees is under the beams of the sun. But Sun, Mercury can be just a real blowout of communication. And the closer, the more that you're going to see it. So yours is pretty weak. It's about, like 9 degrees, so it's not too bad. But it is enough, I think, for you to be really fixated on, oh, this person hurt me, or you hurt me, and trying to communicate, and people not being so receptive. So it's not just you, that has been something that's been going on. All right, so let me pull up Tara's info. And this is 11684. And that was at St. Petersburg, Florida, 11:37 a.m. I desperately need to leave my job. I've been constantly searching and applying with a possible lead starting in October, but in a different field. Let me read the rest of this. I had a private reading last year suggesting by April this year I'd definitely have a different job and a serious relationship that could be supportive. To leave working still at the same job, no relationship at all. Okay. You had an astrology reading that said that? I mean, your Venus is in Sag, and Jupiter rules your Venus. The South Node and the eclipses went through your Venus. That's not necessarily a really strong indication that a relationship was going to come in and save you. I mean, this is very textbook. And I think I would say this to anyone, but like nobody is necessarily going to save you. Like relationships can come in when you see trines and sextiles, yes. And it depends on the year that you're in, the annual perfection year that you're in. I think the bigger issue that's going on right now is the fact that your chart ruler Mars is coming into a square with the Sun and Pluto. So let's start there. This is about this realization that work does not feel fulfilling, and that there needs to be this sense of you really shifting more deeply into focusing on something that's going to give you the freedom to be able to do the work that you want to do. Over the next couple days, this is going to get rather intense because Mars is your chart ruler, and as it squares with Pluto between now and let's say the beginning of July, I would say like keep your cool. It's not a time to necessarily like full-blown like leave your job quite yet. You're going to see things improve when you see positive aspects to either transit or natal Saturn. And so one thing that's going on right now also is that you have been in your Saturn square Saturn. Have you already gone through like a really significant separation or breakup? Has that happened? Because you have that Mars, Pluto, Saturn in the 7th. Yeah, but Pluto coming retrograde, coming into conjunction with your Sun. If you've been this unhappy in your job, especially for like the last year plus, The fact that the job didn't end or that there wasn't like a reshuffling that happened in December and January tells me that you're kind of on borrowed time. You could see some job changes happen when there is a full moon. And there is going to be a full moon that's going to be relatively close to your natal sun, square Pluto. Yes, a few years ago. Okay. Mark your calendar for July 13th. Give or take a day or two on each side. That full moon conjunct your sun is literally bringing up some kind of theme of like needing to end something or kill something off because it doesn't feel like it's bringing you happiness or joy. This can bring about a crisis also with like a boss at work or some kind of like reshuffling of people who are kind of like running things at work in general. But I have a feeling between that full moon that's coming and the squares that are going to be taking place that you're kind of, cruising for getting ready to leave something. New job stuff possibly could be coming, I would say, when you start seeing planets move into your 6th and we start seeing like Mercury trine Mercury. So this is looking better from like August 8th through the better part of, let's say, mid-September. Now, here's what's interesting is that in mid-September, you're going to see Mercury retrograde come in conjunction with the Sun, and Venus is going to come into a trine with Pluto. So, yeah, like mid-September through the beginning of October, they're pushing you around and you want out. Yeah, that's Pluto on your Sun. So, there can be a sense of, even if that does happen in the next month, finding something new and going back to work. Probably when you start seeing like planets in Virgo come into a trine with the North Node and also your Sun. But long-term wise, I keep looking at your natal Saturn. I mean, the South Node is getting ready to conjunct your natal Saturn, ruler of the 10th. That makes me feel like you're going to have some kind of squabble or something with somebody at work that's basically going to be trying to get you to, shift gears or be willing to leave. It can bring about some like legal issues. So I question whether or not they are doing things that are a little dirty to try to get you out. And then when the South Node conjuncts your Saturn and you have an eclipse, it is going to bring up the theme of new relationships coming into your life, presenting you with the opportunity to partner with new people. Now, this is going to be the strongest from the end of October with real emphasis really through, let's say, mid-November. That mid-November full moon eclipse is going to bring up the theme of whether or not you have support from another person. And your chart ruler, Mars, is going to go retrograde in the fall in your 3rd. And it will oppose your Venus, which is your 7th house lord, Jupiter. So if you find love's going to be at a distance or somewhere else. I would say document everything at work, because if there is anything going on that's not legal, and if you have something for wrongful termination, that Mars retrograde with trines to Saturn and also oppositions to your 9th. I mean, it makes me feel like you would contemplate being like, do I need to move? Do I need to take a job in another city? Have I met somebody who's convincing me to come and, stay and be closer to them? The nice thing is at the end of this year, Pluto is leaving the conjunction with your Sun. So it's only going to get easier and easier. And the Sun is the ruler of your 5th, so it brings up themes of like falling in love or children or somebody that you're dating. It could mean that you end up meeting somebody who says like, do you want to focus on your career stuff? Do you want to make a segue and make a change and be focused more on anything in regards to like being in a relationship or having a family, if that interests you? But I'm still a little hesitant to tell you that everything will happen in this immediate year. Can the relationship stuff start to kind of get better? Yeah, especially as we get closer to the fall. But I have this feeling that with Venus in opposition to Mars, by the end of this year, there's a relationship going on with somebody who's at a distance, and you're having to make a decision as to like whether or not you would, possibly consider moving to be closer to them, which may not actually fully materialize until the moon comes into conjunction with Mars closer to the end of March. Now, this could also materialize as taking a job in some way where you're doing some work like online or by phone when Mars goes retrograde in your 3rd, because it's going to trine your 7th house and also your 11th. So I would say look for positions that are going to materialize. That's like being able to do like telecommunications work or digital assisting or anything like that. But yeah, the Mars retrograde, if I thought that you were going to be pregnant, then there was an overlay in your 5th, likely. And let's see, your annual perfection year, so January. So what year are you in? Let me pull up this. So you're 38. So you are in, yeah, you're in a third house year. And it's going to be fourth house next year. So, yeah, it's about you making decisions as to whether or not you're going to move or start working more digitally by phone. So that's still going to happen. It's just not going to happen until the end of this year. But I would say be careful with this full moon that's coming mid this next month. It's going to bring up some issues at work and can present something going on. But I don't think it's you making the decision to quit. I think that this is going to be something that's going on at work, and that'll be right around the 13th. And relationships in general, I mean, here's the thing. You know about your relationship with relationships. You've seen how intense your relationships get, right? You don't need me to tell you this. Pluto, Mars, Saturn all being in the 7th house. Relationships can be extremely intense for you. But I have this feeling, because you have Venus in Sag, if you're willing to meet people in other places, this is going to help expedite this process and make it possible for you to connect with somebody, especially because Mars could be you, but Mars could be also a man. And as Mars comes into an opposition with Venus, as early as the end of September, I get the impression you're going to start talking to somebody somewhere else. So, and if you do end up making a job change, it looks like you're probably going back to work literally sometime around the end of September, beginning of October. It may not be very long. Yeah. Hopefully that was helpful. Let me know. Come back, circle back around, and let me know what happens with this. Because to me, it's looking like there's another job position and you're kind of flip-flopping right around the end of September. So hopefully that is helpful. So that was Tara. So now we've got Stephanie. Guys, we're calling last call. So anybody who's going to be after 8 o'clock, unfortunately, will be refunded because we only have time for so many people. So if you want to get on the queue, let me know now. So let's pull up Stephanie. Stephanie has questions about a solar return. And let's see. Stephanie. I need to see which Stephanie it is. I got a couple. Hold on. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. So we're going to close last call. So Nadia, you are last. And let's see here. Stephanie. Sorry, my PayPal, for whatever reason, it's being like really weird. It's taken a little bit longer than usual to get everybody up. Okay, here we go. Stephanie Carrillo. And you wanted a quick solar return overview. Montclair. And that's where you're living this year, correct? I just want to make sure. Cool. Oh, no, Omaha. Okay, never mind. I take that back. You're born in, okay, got it. So it looks like your solar return is going to be on July 3rd, 2022 at 4:29 p.m. And that was in Omaha. So she's got questions about her solar return chart. She said she's having some challenges. She wants to know what I see for the year ahead. I see change. That's what I see. I see lots of change. You got a Scorpio rising in this chart. And this is going to be about change and transformation, putting an emphasis on both Mars and also Pluto. Well, the Mars square Pluto is perfecting right around the time of your birthday. So Mars in the 6th house is a lot of work. It's at 29 degrees, which is a degree that deals with kind of like now or never. So one thing you want to pay attention to, like really hear me on this, is like rushing through things, mental stress. Do not be racing around while you're driving. Mars in the 6th house can be accidents, especially when it squares Pluto. It can also be about moving too quickly in life, mentally, while you're driving, physically moving, like just kind of slow down, take your time, all right? Mars in Aries is great, and I think that even in spite of the square, we are seeing some other aspects, like Mars is in a sextile to Saturn, so it makes me feel like work first, moving later. There seems to be themes about possible moves. Now, this might be coming up for you either during the end of Capricorn season, so think like December through January, or it can be coming up for you somewhere around, actually, it could be December through February, because that Saturn's at the most southern part of the chart. Sometimes that's like, do I move home? Do I move in with family? Do I go back to where I used to live? It's getting you to think about your home and your domestic zone more so strongly right now for some reason. So you can kind of re-strategize and then focus on where some other placements are. This is no different than a Scorpio rising right now, right? So Scorpio rising, having the North Node in the 7th is about focus on relationships, bringing in new relationships. Saturn in the 4th is like, okay, how do I figure out where I'm living? And believe it or not, everything else, I mean, the chart matters, but nothing else matters. The square between Saturn and Uranus is saying, where do you want to live? Where is their family? What feels like home? How are you building your personal life? Uranus in the 7th house is, how are you making innovations in relationships? People from the past can come back. You can move back to places that you've been. There is most likely going to be a sudden, unexpected relationship that is transpiring, that is positive. But I think that that's happening more for you like March, April, May. Obviously, the eclipses can trigger this, though, because you've got North Node and Uranus on your descendant. Look for people in other cities, or look to be moving, and right after you move, then possibly you'll meet someone. There's a lot of these themes. I know that sounds like repetitive, what I'm saying, but especially if you have fixed signs, there's a lot of like, we move, we change jobs. We move, we meet someone, because it's happening in the active cardinal houses. But because you also have Mars in a sextile to Saturn, it's saying like moving might actually give you more opportunities for work or for jobs. You might have much more of an emphasis in like feeling like you're into fitness this year, where you're working out more, or you're paying attention to what you're eating, you're wanting to work out alone, running, working up a sweat, all of that stuff is important. You've got the sun in the 8th house. So the other way that I look at this is that you're tackling issues revolving around financial security and home security. So things like 8th house is like loans, debt, other people's resources, other people's homes. Like this is going to be something that's going to come up for you this year. And you've got the moon hanging out in the 10th house. So I actually feel like with the moon trine Mars, work stuff can be changing as early as like September going into October. With the moon there can be a change happening, and it's at a 4. So maybe you get involved in like real estate, working from home, something in regards to helping people in their homes or helping people with home related things. And I do see a move happening, but a lot of this is about communicating and talking to other people, whether it's family or friends or partners, about moves to be able to kind of facilitate feeling like you're actually building your life, which is going to be taking place in the beginning of this next year. So these squares are wild. Saturn square the nodes in this chart is saying like, what are you building for yourself? What kind of a home do you want? Where is your family? And Saturn in Aquarius on the cusp of the 4th is weird, because family might be cousins, it might be best friends, it might be friends that you live with, anything like that. I see you asking about Jupiter in the 5th. It means that you're willing to take more risks in love. It can be pregnancy, okay? It can be a younger person that you end up meeting. It is at a 7, so maybe you meet somebody at a bar. The 5th house is a bar. You could meet them in Sag season, or you could meet them in Aries season, but likely it could be a younger person, fit, athletic maybe, somebody who likes to travel. They could be culturally diverse. A Jupiter return in the 5th does say there is a possibility of pregnancy, but it would have to be, You'd have to see more than that. Now we do, because the sun is in a square, so it's representing parenting. But it could also be you going like, I want to go on dates more. I want to have fun. I want to work hard so I can play hard. I want to start thinking about parenting. I mean, a lot of Scorpio rising charts with Saturn in the 4th, Jupiter in the 5th, and the eclipses in the 7th is like boom, boom, boom. Relationships come in very quickly. You end up moving, playing house, and then you start, talking about further commitment. But it's not guaranteed. We'd have to see that across the board in a number of other different things, like comparing this to your transits, and then also comparing it to your progressions. That's really how I look for pregnancy. I look for progressed moon going through the 5th, progressed moon conjunct Jupiter, progressed moon on the sun, progressed moon on the ascendant. You'd have to look for those signatures. But yeah, that is a heads up that pregnancy is definitely something that is possible. But it could also be, if you have kids, cool, that they're going into sports, right? And all of a sudden, they want to start playing soccer, or they want to play baseball, or something like that. Something they can do independent as well. So it can be like martial arts or something. But with Jupiter being there, and it's the ruler of your second, you're spending more time on, and money and resources on play or on hobbies that involve other people. Your second child is always your 7th house. So being that the North Node is conjunct Uranus, that still is kind of an indication with the sextiles that it's making to Neptune that is still possible. But it might be that you meet somebody who has a kid as well. So that's the other way that I would look at it. But yeah, it looks like an insightful year ahead. Just be mindful of that 8th house sun, that you're really focusing on changing your career and feeling like you can make more money. So you feel like you can really have more flexibility with your finances, and feeling like you're not feeling financially strapped. Please be careful when you're driving. That Mars at 29 degrees square Pluto is like, texting and driving. No, you shouldn't be doing that anyway. Being on the phone and driving. No, it's like, if you're in the car, put your phone in your purse. Trust me on this. You're going to see this energy several times this year, that there can be issues and problems with vehicles and accidents, and you do not want to be messing around with that when that square is taking place. So please be careful. Hopefully it's a stable man this time. North Node Uranus in the 7th. I mean, you're definitely going to bring somebody in who's going to be very different. But I've seen for a lot of Scorpio rising charts that Uranus going through the 7th house is usually, for Scorpio rising, somebody from the past coming back. So it can be somebody that you dated a long time ago, somebody that you were friends with, somebody that you knew a long time ago, and somehow they come back. Maybe it was a friend. So friends from the past can come back too. But I've seen a lot of Scorpio risings that have had partners come in from the past, because Uranus rules the past. Hopefully that's helpful. Keep us updated. Let's move on to Sarah. Sarah, are you here? Hopefully you are. Pull up your question. Sarah says, October 3rd, 2001, in light of recent events, as a trans person, I'm ready to start the process of getting a procedure. When is the best time and date for surgery? Thanks. So, surgical things are always going to be more so kind of connected to Mars, Pluto, Scorpio. You've got South Node that's going through there right now. Do you mind telling me, is it going to be a series of procedures, or is it going to be one procedure that you're doing? Is it that, because that makes a difference. With Pluto square your moon right now, wow, Pluto rules your 8th house, which does deal with surgeries in the reproductive organs. Pluto in Capricorn deals with like government putting the pressure on you to feel like you want to do it. I have an Aries moon too. And when I had Pluto square my moon, I felt like this intense like pressure to like make big decisions relating to my moon. Like all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, am I going to have kids? What am I going to do? I got to move. Like it will bring this up. And it can get you very emotional and feel like you need to act. This is being amplified even more because Mars is on your moon. So you're feeling rushed, like you need to do something suddenly. And I would say just take your time. You don't need to do it right now. And also Mars is going to be going retrograde later this year. So it's a matter of feeling that energy now and maybe planning if that's something that you need to do. This is, yeah. Usually when Pluto squares the moon, there is this feeling of like, oh my gosh, like something in relation to either the reproductive organs or the breasts come up. There's going to be a lot of big feelings with this full moon in Capricorn, because it's going to trigger, that Pluto square your moon right now, and how you're feeling about whether or not you would ever want to have children, or how you choose to identify out in the world. So there's some kind of big thing that's coming from this around the 13th. But actual surgery, right? I would not want to see, a Mars conjunct Uranus, because frankly, maybe that's the process of you going like, I am going to do it. It's figuring out how to afford it. But with that conjunction square Saturn, it's not a great aspect. Unfortunately, I don't like surgeries when Mars is either in its detriment or its fall. And I guess the one thing that I would say is that Mars is going to be in the late degrees of Capricorn. It'll come out of the square with Saturn, and it's going to trine Pluto. So maybe perhaps you're feeling somewhere in mid-August like the need to have a date set and to be putting a deposit or making sure that you have everything that you need financially to be able to do that. So you can make those moves in terms of planning sometime around mid-August. I would question with that conjunction to Uranus is it something you have to pay for, or are you having to see if this is something that insurance would cover? That's a question I have, because Mars rules your 8th house and Uranus rules the 12th. So it means there may be certain centers or private centers or whatever that would be willing to work with you, or who may be offering discounts and stuff because you're opting to do this as trans individual. So that's another way to look at it. Mars going into Gemini. Well, this is possible, especially when Mars is coming into a trine with Saturn and a conjunction with your natal Saturn. I could see this as being something that's possible. So you could be considering this. Mars, though, it is going to run into some squares with Neptune, and this makes me have some concerns about how you heal, if there is the possibility of infection, if there's any issues with fluids or anything in terms of like being able to like fully process everything. We could look for something like maybe when the sun in Libra is coming into a trine with your natal Saturn, and then Mars is trine Saturn. And I would say let's do it at a time where the moon is in a trine. Mars will be in shadow, okay? But if you're like, I need to do this year, October 14th-ish is looking better for your chart. Sun-Venus conjunction, it's trining Mars and the moon. It's also not going to be in a harsh angle to the south node. You've got a trine to Saturn. And at that point, Mars and the moon are sextiling your moon. So you're making that change. Maybe you also feel like you're going to be able to have somebody who can kind of help you, post-op and all of that stuff. So maybe you're putting this together in August, you're doing it in mid-October. I would not do any selective, or unless it's really necessary, I'm a stickler for not doing surgeries during a retrograde, a Mars retrograde. And that's what we're going to be having from the end of October. Now, I feel like you may be in a situation where it's harder for you to actually get your surgery in the fall, because Mars, your chart lord, is going retrograde in the 3rd. Maybe you're feeling like you have to go to another center. Maybe you can't see the doctor you want. Maybe you're having to drive somewhere else to go. It's going to be frustrating. And you're also going to be having eclipses involving the south node in your 8th. So yes, I think that it's going to be more challenging for you to get it done. I would say maybe setting it around mid-August and planning on doing it mid-October would be the best move. Otherwise, you need to wait until Mars gets into a more masculine degree, and you could be looking at doing something like this when perhaps you have like Mars that is in a trine to your ascendant, but it's going to quincunx your natal Mars, and then when you have Mars go into Virgo, yeah, it's going to get more complicated. Like the more that you go into next year, it's going to get more complex. So I would say try to possibly look at doing that sometime around mid-October. And you can get that on the books and start figuring that out as early as mid-August. Sometimes I tell people things that don't work with their timeline, and I understand if people, want things sooner or they don't want to wait, I get it. But when it comes to like surgical procedures, I'm a little bit of a stickler. I'll also say that because you have an exalted Mars in Capricorn, and that you have like Jupiter and Uranus that's going to be in a trine to your Mars next year, I feel like you're adjusting better hormonally if you do it this year. So I don't know if that is important. I don't know if it's going to affect your hormones. I don't know if it's going to affect how you eat. I don't know how it might affect your thyroid. There can be things like that that can happen. So for the most part, you're adjusting, and you might want to talk to your doctor about natural ways or herbal supplements or things that you can do that's more natural and holistic to kind of better balance some of that stuff out. So you're adjusting better post-surgical procedure next year. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful. If you decide to adjust something in regards to timing, I offer like election astrology. So if you're like, when's the best time to get a surgery? What day? Like I'll tell you the day, time to do things. Some people come to me because they want to actually have children, and they want to do like cesarean. So they want to design the chart before the baby's born. I do that. I've had a lot of that recently. And yeah, launching books, moves, getting married. I do all that stuff. I've been a surgeon, and I'm trying to get the best date, concerned about possible bladder damage. That's concerning for me as well, especially during the Mars in Gemini dates, because I'm not wild about once Mars gets into the later degrees and it starts squaring Neptune, because that can bring issues with the bladder. Yeah. And that's going to be the end of October. So mid-October, I would say, is probably the best time to go. And if you can't do it, then doing it sometime next year. And you can also look at like a solar return and see what that's like looking like. But for the most part, you don't have a negatively aspected Mars. I think the North Node, trine Mars, and all this stuff is making it possible if that's something that you feel like you need to do. So all of the best luck to you in the process of that. Obviously, that's a lot to go through a surgery like that. So keep us updated. Hopefully it goes well. I've got Ellie here. I think I have you in here. There we go. All right, so let's see what Ellie says. What's up, Deanna? I can answer your question. I'll add you. I've got about 4 or 5 people, but I can add you if you want to hang around for a little bit. All right, so Ellie, what is her question? Ellie says, oh, I do not have a question. So Ellie, let me know what your question is, and I will pull that up for you. Getting Tampax ads. That's appropriate. All right, so let's see. Ellie, let me know your question. Otherwise, I'll circle to Matt and come back to you. Let me pull up Matt Powers. Do I have you in here? Oh, Kurt. Oh, there you are. Okay. So I'll get Ellie, and then I got you, Kurt. Career insight. Well, Jupiter's hanging out in Aries. It's not quite making a trine to your midheaven, but Mars is, so you should be feeling a little bit more motivated to want to make changes with work. Saturn's no longer in opposition to your natal Jupiter. And we're starting to see now that Uranus is coming into a conjunction with Mercury still. How are you doing with that Uranus-Mercury conjunction? That should be bringing up all kinds of new kind of crazy futuristic ways that you can be selling art and doing things in relation to your art. It does make you feel a little mental. But I think that because it's the ruler of your 7th house, which is clients, or it can be people who are wanting to pay for services or anything in regards to art that you're making, you're going to have people who might start being interested in it. So that's definitely a possibility. No worries, Kurt. I got you. But the bigger thing that I'm seeing right now is that, you know, you are now getting ready to start seeing, as Jupiter retrogrades back, a reevaluation of what you want to be charging for some of your artistic stuff and the Mars North Node Uranus conjunction is happening on your 2nd. I'm wondering if this is like about you branching out a little bit in terms of the creative process, creativity in a different format. So like if you're somebody who does, you know, painting, it would be like audio visual, or if you do more focus on like drawing or things like that. The 3rd house can be teaching lessons in courses, so I'm wondering if what's going to start getting drummed up for you at the end of July is new innovative ways to make money through teaching or like working with like a new material. And then I'm also curious, once that conjunction ends and Mars comes into conjunction with your Sun, where you're like, okay, I think I can do this. Like people might start asking you for your assistance, basically. I think it's going to bring like more clients or more people in who are interested in what it is that you have to offer. You do have Neptune in a square to your midheaven, so there's a little bit of still feeling your way through it. But as Jupiter retrogrades and it comes into conjunction with Neptune again, it's only going to be something that's going to kind of grow, because I see squares happening in Sag season, which is bringing more attention to something that you're like putting out there. How are you feeling like you're doing with like putting some of your work out there? And are you open to working with people who might be buying your work for websites, for product design, for books, things like that? Like, are you open to kind of selling some of your creative work to people who might need art or something designed for any of these topics? Because it looks like that's what's going to start kind of popping up for you. It'll be interesting to see Mars go retrograde, because I do think that it's going to make you realize that later this year you can go back to old talents or old things that you've worked on that you haven't worked on in a while. And I could see you making money somehow by working with people in their homes, or going to people, painting them, making paintings, designing, creating things that could be like patterns and textiles and other things. Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. As soon as I mean, your Mercury is the line of fire. The Mercury at 17 of Taurus, Mars and Uranus are going to conjunct that point. So right down the end of July, beginning of August, there's going to be a sudden shift and an opportunity for you to be able to make money, and somebody's going to say, "Hey, can I buy that?" Or, "Hey, would you paint me one of these?" Right? It's going to be something like that. So it's important to be really active with some of your online stuff and be showing what you're working on, what you're doing. Something could suddenly blow up. That's what Uranus-Mars means. And somebody might see something of yours, and then other people might see something that you're designing and they want it. So I'm wondering what that is. But you need to be showing and putting your creative process out there. And then obviously, Jupiter going back into Pisces, being in your 1st house sign, is going to bring more, like I said, expansion. People are going to see you more. So that's really kind of peaking up a lot in November, really through about the end of December this year. And with Saturn being in your 12th house, there is this feeling of kind of still being isolated a little bit. And when it retrogrades and it squares your Mercury, there's this feeling of like not being able to connect with people. But I feel like the more that you're putting stuff out there and showing people that you're open to it, you're going to get more visibility, if that makes sense. Let me know. It's going to be exciting to hear. Like, circle back and like leave me a comment and let me know what happens at the end of July, because I have a feeling there's going to be a sudden money making opportunity, and you're going to be like, whoa, okay, yes, I can paint one of these for you, and then it's going to just start into like a process of other products or something that you're going to be making for people. Very interesting. I know it's been a long road. There's been a lot of you being like, what am I doing? But something's going to hit as soon as that conjunction happens. All right, so we've got Kurt. And it looks like his info is January 23rd, 95. And that's going to be 9:53 a.m. All right, so let's look at Kirk's question. So he says, oh, maybe he put it in my PayPal. Thank you guys for your patience. My PayPal's being crazy. So I have Elizabeth, Jamie, and Natya that are still coming through. All right, here we go. So Matt, he says, asking about my work situation. I'm a teacher at school for the mentally disturbed and physically aggressive youth. After 2 years working for this company in a variety of roles, I'm super happy with the fit I have for teaching the younger kids. However, there's talk about them having to move people around for the upcoming school year. I'm worried they'll move me to a second oldest group of kids. I'm apprehensive because I was traumatized back in summer of 2020. I started working in a high facility, lots of squares. I remember you got hit. Finally made it here after lots of trial and error, and I'm worried that if they move me to my happiness at work, will it regress? Do you see me moving me? If so, will I be happy? Will it be a better fit? Okay. So, part of what I see, and it's very much connected to in preparation for your Saturn return, is that Saturn is getting ready to retrograde back, and it's coming into conjunction with your Mercury. So Mercury, in this being the ruler of your 6th, is going to be possibly working with older people, possibly, because it could bring you back to working with old groups. Saturn is also the ruler of your 10th. It's also going to be in a square to Uranus, which makes me feel like as Mars and Uranus starts coming into conjunction, it is probably going to be triggering these moving people around sometime around mid-August. And here's the beauty about astrology. This is where you can get prepared, right? And you can basically say, okay, I know this is coming, not just because the astrology says so, but because they've told me. And you can start kind of building a case for being like, yeah, I can't really go back there. I feel like it could be documents, or it could be a doctor's note, or somebody that you've spoken to about like just about the trauma. So I don't know if you've seen a therapist or anything like that. But I'm looking at right around August 14th through the trine with Pluto. So let's say the 23rd. That you're able to express, like, it's not that I don't want to work with moving around or the schedule, but like literally the trauma that you have endured, especially as you have Mercury trine Pluto and North Node Uranus, and really sharing the concern that you have for your physical safety, because there is some truth to that. And the fact that, you really don't want to go back in that direction. Now, the other thing is that you have Saturn, ruler of the 10th house of career, coming into an opposition with Mars, which is your chart ruler. That can actually be like a separation. Eventually, when you go into your Saturn return next year, and Saturn drops into your natal 12th house, which will be February, you are going to be starting work in a more private area. Like, they may move you to a place where you're working with kids who have had psychological trauma. You might be working with people behind the scenes. Saturn in the 10th makes me feel like you might be working with kids that have endured abuse or anything of that nature. Like, you're going to be working much more privately. So even if you do end up being in a situation where they move you, I'm not saying that you're not going to keep your job, but it's very clear to me that with Pluto going retrograde on your Mercury, there's going to be a change to your schedule, or the actual department that you're in. And with Pluto going retrograde over your natal Uranus, it's bringing up all of these, concerns and these fears. I would say building a case of just how much it took to out of your pocket to go and get some of these things fixed. I know you were worried about whether or not you were going to lose your vision. I think at one point in one side of your eye, you contemplate whether or not you were going to sue them because of all the things that happened. I feel like this is enough as Saturn comes into opposition with Mars for you to basically state a case and be like, look, this is everything I had to do. Can I make a formal request so I feel safer, right? I would say definitely do that. And it won't be until Saturn makes an opposition with Mars that they may still move you. So there is a possibility that it does take up to, let's say, February of next year for a move to happen when Saturn hits 29 degrees and it opposes your Mars, which is your chart ruler. But I have a feeling this is going to be a good move, because you're going to be finding out that you're actually going and working for like a center or a department that you really want. Watch for that full moon that's coming. You're going to be another one of those people that's going to be really affected by this full moon that is coming here pretty soon. Let me go back. Right in mid-July. right here. Because it's going to be conjunct your natal Uranus, which is the ruler of the 12th, something you don't see coming. And I wonder, like, if you have talked to a therapist or if you've talked to anybody and you have any documentation of just how challenging this was, getting ready to present that right around the time that Mars is coming into a trine with Pluto, you can present this to them and basically insinuate, let's say from August 3rd through the better part of this full moon, that's going to be around mid-August, your concerns for the matter. And I actually think that they will see this out, because with your Uranus and the North Node meeting, it's like basically being like, look, my body endured some kind of trauma. This is also about how you're managing stress. So I want you to be mindful of that. Stress can really be affecting you, especially your nervous system, your thyroid, your throat. There's something like that that's kind of coming up that's concerning here for me as well. And if this is fear that's like, I've worked really hard to get here, I don't want to go back, it's okay. The 12th house stuff is literally going to be about talking to somebody and getting some support and insight. So maybe it's about talking to HR, seeing how far you can get there, but really showing documents and anything that you have relating to just the trauma that you endured, so you can ensure that your security, right, North Node in the second, is secure and safe and it's not being challenged. And then this should calm down right about the time that you get to September. But it could take up until the beginning of next year, when Saturn comes into an opposition with your Mars, for there to be a change. And likely, like I said, whether it's continuing education or you going and working for a department that's going to be more private and more psychological and behind the scenes, I think it's going to be a better move for you. So hopefully that's helpful. Let me know what happens. I would love to hear. Looks like we've got Elizabeth Martinez. What's up, Elizabeth? Let's put you in here. And when will I meet the one? Everybody always asks me that. Let's see. So November 14th, 84. Usually it's when you're not looking. 10:56 a.m. So I'll give you an idea. But I will tell you that sometimes you have to look at progressions, you have to look at solar return charts. Like I don't just look at one thing. And that's what you get when you get a reading, is I will look at everything. All right, so let's look at what's coming up in your chart here. So your 7th house is ruled by the moon, which is ruled by Cancer, and you've also got your moon in the 7th house as well. One thing that I note about this is that you've got moon in opposition to Mars, so there can be this feeling that's like people come in and then maybe you like rush into something. It's like, yes, I want it now. Be mindful that over the next like 2 years, Pluto coming into an opposition with the moon can be this feeling that if you're rushing into something, sometimes there's like this rushing for something that feels unobtainable, right? So we don't want to push too hard, especially because you have moon square Pluto as well. So you've got a pretty unique square, right? Moon in opposition to Mars, which is I want it fast, and then moon square Pluto, which is like this feeling of like becoming fixated or obsessive. Or sometimes, have you been in situations where there's been people that you liked at work or vice versa, and it became really intense and like you wanted the relationship but you couldn't because you were working together, or somebody became fixated on you and you were like, no, we work together? I wonder, because that's how that square could play out. I guess the good news is that the new moon is happening right now as we speak, and it's coming into conjunction with your descendant. So actually tonight, maybe even tomorrow morning, is a really great day to sit down and set intentions revolving around relationships, because having a new moon conjunct your descendant can say within the next 2 months there's going to be a lot of realizations about relationships. Within the next 6 months you can see bigger things unfolding. I'm not wild about the fact that Pluto is coming into opposition with your moon, because it makes me feel like while people can show up, it can bring about some really intense conversations about whether or not they are financially ready for what you're ready for, right? Or whether or not you guys are on the same page in terms of what your values are. This is because Pluto will go into Aquarius next year and start opposing your moon. And your moon's at a 2, which deals with whether or not somebody has enough resources, whether or not somebody is valuing the idea of having children, right? Or marriage. So you want to watch out because your Pluto square is going to definitely be a lot about that. But when can men show up outside of transits that you have to the moon? Men can show up when you have like Jupiter trine the moon, which you're having. So when Jupiter goes retrograde and it drops back down to around 2 degrees, look for that around the end of September. Jupiter can be husbands, by the way. End of September through about November. And then it's going to come back and it's going to start trining again in early January. I have a feeling that a good potential in this chart could be when Juno and Venus are hovering around your moon around August of 2023. And then we're also going to see that there is going to be a Venus retrograde also happening. And when Venus goes retrograde and there is a conjunction with Juno and it is square Jupiter, sometime between, like, let's say mid-August and mid-September, that's a possibility. For Scorpios as well, like Uranus and the eclipses going through Taurus, you're going to hear for your horoscope, like, oh, relationships are going to show up very suddenly. Yes, that can happen when Jupiter opposes your sun. Yes, that can happen when Uranus opposes your sun. However, it's likely to be somebody who's either living in a different place or they have like a very different like financial background than you or what you're looking for. For Scorpios, you're going to hear things like, wow, your partner is inheriting land or buying land, or they're having a good financial run, which can be true. But I think in your case, they're rich with the possibilities of a home or family or giving you a space to kind of build with. But in my mind, still in the background, I'm watching Pluto coming into an opposition with your moon. And although people can go through transits and they can survive them and still meet people and have relationships, your Pluto square is going to bring up some really intense things about possessions and what's yours versus what's other people's. And there's going to be these themes revolving around, you know, whether or not the person that you're in a relationship with, if they're, you know, really ready for a long-term committed relationship. Another way that we could see this play out is also like when Jupiter, Uranus come together and they oppose your sun. It can materialize as like right around, you know, 2024, being like, okay, I've met the person. Now we're moving in together. We're doing these things and figuring out how we're kind of setting our life up. At least then Saturn will be 5 signs from your sun. So things are a little bit more stable in the spring of 2024. Another way that I can do this is I can look at your progressions and do this briefly here. Your progressions can also paint a picture of like what's coming. And you've got your progressed moon in Sag getting ready to conjunct your natal sun, or your progressed sun in Capricorn. So there's a new moon setting up over the next 2 months, because you're going to see this progressed moon conjunct the sun. So it's kind of hitting restart. That's great for work. That's great for career. But that's also great about manifesting and focusing on what you want in regards to your future and the visions that you have for your future. So like meditation can be really helpful for you in August. And then if I remember correctly, your Venus, sorry, I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit. Your Venus is, yeah, it's 0 degrees. Okay, so this is some hardcore astrology for you. Your progressed moon is about to conjunct your natal Venus at 0 degrees. That's big. And your progressed sun is conjunct your natal Venus in the 12th. You might meet them behind the scenes at work, or you're going to meet them somehow in relation to career developments and things like that. So that prediction that I had, that was like, have you met somebody through work? Did it feel like taboo? That might actually play out. It might just not have happened quite yet. But progressed sun in conjunction to your natal Venus, progressed moon in conjunction to your natal Venus. Something is being seeded right now. And I would say look for this maybe between now and the new year. That can be a period of time. The immediate next 6 months, that's also opposite to that new moon in Cancer. But to really kind of break it down for you, I'm thinking that there's going to be more stability going on sometimes around next summer. And then I'm kind of seeing it right around 2024. Some really big life changes with relationships and where you're living. If you have questions about that, I can break that all down in a session and we can look at it, sometimes in the solar return, but also in progressions. I'll tell you, because the moon rules your natal 7th and it's technically in the whole sign 8th, there is some sense of meeting somebody revolving around a crisis, like right when a job changes or a family member passes or something, like you guys might meet each other because you are going to have Pluto coming into opposition with your moon. So you'll hear for somebody being like, yeah, I just had this radical life change and like now here I am. And then you guys will meet each other. Okay. Hopefully that is helpful. Let me know, cycle back. Let us know if you end up meeting somebody in those time periods, because it just might happen. We've got Jamie and Natya. So let's see what Jamie has to say. It looks like she has a Synastry. Maybe. So Jamie, let me know, what is your question? I have your info, but I do not have your question. 22191. And that's at 9:18 in Los Angeles. Two 2191, 9:18 p.m. Cool, gotcha. All right, let's see. No worries. What is your question? You're welcome, Liz. Good luck. How are you doing with Saturn conjunct Mercury? Are you having lots of anxiety? Are you feeling like creatively like blocked? Are you having questions about the bigger overall purpose of your life? I went through a breakup. I'm trying to understand the wants and needs of a relationship, also looking at moving life changes. Okay. Well, breakups, I mean, Mars is in your 7th. That doesn't necessarily mean a breakup has to happen, but I think the bigger thing that's also going on, I see the anxiety. I would say more rest and meditation can be really helpful for you. Okay, because you have Saturn going back and forth over your Mercury. Now it's retrograding, so it's going to go back into the 4th. So what it wants you to focus more on is, what kind of a life are you building? How do you feel emotionally? Where do you want to live? Start there. A lot of Libra risings are learning it's not about other people. I know you feel a little tight on the resources because Saturn's retrograding to your 4th and it's squared Pluto, and it's like, what do I let go of? What do I keep? What do I not keep? And it's a wonderful time to be like, I can let go of everything. And even if I let go of things and people and relationships, I am complete. I'm fine. It wants you to kind of do like a detox, like a purge, right? South node on your Pluto in the 2nd is also like unhealthy eating habits, unhealthy sexual relationships, obsessions about money, resources. Like, I'm going to play you the Frozen song. You want to let it all go. Part of what's happening is you have Mercury square Pluto natally. So as Saturn comes into that conjunction, you're realizing that a lot of tension would be a lot easier or more easily released if you felt like you had more stability in your home life. So I would say focus on that first. The breakups, and this is what's interesting. I've seen this for a lot of Libra risings. People have been like, oh, Jupiter's going into your 7th house. Like, relationships are going to get great. Actually, there's either going to be a lot of arguments and fights that lead to this buildup where Libra risings are going to be like, I can't do this anymore. This has to get better, or it's not going to work, which does materialize as endings. But Jupiter is bringing positive endings. So if relationships end, it's like it's happening because it's going to bring you something better. And then secondly, You're also going to see Jupiter go back and forth over your natal Venus a couple times, which is really great as a Libra rising. As Jupiter goes retrograde, it's going to hit your Venus again somewhere around the end of October, early November, which makes me feel like healthier routine, more peace, more focus on having more art and beauty and calmness going on in your day-to-day life. It could bring a new relationship or relationship renewal, as could the eclipse actually in early November. Those eclipses were square Saturn, so there's going to be this theme of like, do I leave the past? Do I move away from people? Do I move to places where relationships are going to be easier and or better? Do you still live in Los Angeles? I see that you're born there, but do you live there? Because part of this can be about whether or not you're venturing out of where you're living to be dating someone somewhere else. That is like a really common theme with like mid to late degree Libra risings and Scorpio risings this year. I've seen a lot of that. I also feel like you're going to have several Mars returns, so you need to be prepared for like people from the past to return. You can be seeing this happening sometime around September through December. It can be like a really sexy connection. No, you live in Kansas. Okay. Where somebody kind of comes back into your life, or there is a possibility for you to kind of connect with somebody that's like a little bit more significant. And then Jupiter is going to go into your 7th. So relationships are like top tier. This is something really significant. February of 2023, really through, let's say, about mid next year. And when Saturn conjuncts your sun, the question is like, do you want to be making your own business? Do you want to be making art for a living? What are you doing for work? The moon rules your 10th. You got moon conjunct Mars in the 8th. So there is some sense of like other people having to pay you for things. Yeah, they're already calling you back. There's going to be lots of X stuff coming back. Libra risings, when Mars goes retrograde, because it's the ruler of your 7th, you're going to hear from people from the past who are going to be calling you on the phone or texting you furiously because it's Mars. But they're going to be in other places. And they're going to be like, come visit me, or I'm going to come see you. Something like that's going to start up. And I'm not opposed to it with this chart. Because it will make aspects to both Saturn and your Mercury, but I feel like you're not going to want to deal with the past unless they have really changed or they're, ready for things that you're ready for. I would say make the focus on moving first, and then you'll see what you end up finding currently on your own business. So really next year it's about leveling up with the business stuff and focusing more on how you can expand your business. But I think there can be lots of help through a partnership or possibly a business partner that can help you facilitate this. I think in the background too, Pluto is hanging out around your North Node. And that's quite intense. It's what needs to change and transform and how you get more serious about what you're investing into. So there can be a sense of you being like, I don't want to just spend money on rent. Like I want to buy land. I want to save money and be able to invest in having property or being able to have a home. And that's a huge theme between now and next year. Buckle up, because when Pluto comes into conjunction with Saturn, you want to make sure that, especially next spring, that older family relatives are okay. Like there could be, touch wood, a situation where like a parent or a grandparent or somebody is like, can you come home? Can you help me take care of grandma? Can you help me take care of dad? Usually a Pluto conjunct Saturn will materialize as that. And obviously I don't like saying that, but that could happen then. That could also happen in the beginning of 2024. And something about family and domestic stuff and the possibility of some kind of an inheritance that comes in the form of property or land can happen. And it doesn't just have to be through you. It can be through a partner as well. So it could be somebody who's like, we've got a place, let's move. So try to meet people in other places. I like the fact that you have your own business. I think you're going to be going harder with that next year. More rest and recuperation. You have a lot to look forward to with Jupiter on your Venus. I would say anything in regards to having a little bit of more time for like spontaneity or art or romance in your day-to-day life, like setting candles, anything relating to music, really kind of setting the stage in your workspace or in your everyday to be able to facilitate making that happen, because a lot of that is how you're going to make changes in your love life. Come back, let me know what happens to that Mars retrograde, because somebody from the past is going to return and you're going to be like, what do I do? But there's this really awesome energy right now of being like, I can just start over. I can give everything away and start over. And to me, it feels very liberating when I look at your chart. Hopefully that is helpful. Focus on that meditation, girl. We've got Natya. And do I have her in here? No. So let's take a look. Was that everybody? Am I missing someone? Natya. Natya, are you here or am I looking at the wrong thing? Let me know. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing because I've got a couple things going through my PayPal. Sorry guys, my PayPal's being super crazy. Maybe that was for something else. I think that might be everyone. Did Deanna leave? You're welcome, Jamie. Is she here? Is she here? Okay. All right. Well, I think we got everybody then. I'm pretty sure. So thank you guys for watching. Obviously on a Tuesday, I know it's a little late in some places. Just a reminder, check out my links on my website. If you guys want to take my North Node and Uranus in Taurus webinar, it's going to be on July the 10th. There's a link out. We're doing $10 off the webinar if you purchase it prior to the event date. Go and check out my other courses. I've got tarot that's coming up soon. I've also got astrology. Hopefully you guys are liking the content that we put out. I'm hoping you guys are enjoying this new moon. Go watch my new moon video. It's all about how we are combating fear emotionally and focusing on being able to move forward and feel more safe and secure. As soon as I'm done, I'm going to do all my new moon stuff too, because the new moon was happening as we were actually doing the readings this evening. So how interesting is that? All right, guys, I'll see you soon. I'll be back in a couple days. We're going to put out some horoscopes and some other content. And we're going to talk about all of what the month of July has in store. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your week, and you guys take care.